Okay. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining. I see that we have participants just logging in, getting situated, so we'll give everyone a moment. If you are here, I'm hoping that you're excited to learn with us today, to hear about our jobs as parents, as educators, to really make sure that we have a strong partnership. I'm coming to you from Success Academy's Robertson Center. I'm Stacy Gershkovich. I am both an educator as well as a parent of 3 students, 3 kids who I every day think about my relationship with the school and how we can make sure that we're partnering for our scholar success, which is, I know, what brought you all here today. I'm thrilled to be joined by 2 educators and a parent with us. We're going to introduce them in just a moment, but wanted to give everyone a quick run of show. If you're joining here today, I hope you're excited to learn a little bit about how we think about the partnership of parents and educators, and we named it appropriately Building the Dream Team, because if the parent partnership with the school is done right, we really can make sure that we set our students up for to be the most successful they could possibly be. This webinar kicks off our fall programming at the Robertson Center, which is all centered around autonomy and developing autonomous learners. And we believe having parents and educators work together to collaborate to really make sure we're setting our students up to be autonomous in the future is a goal that we need to work together towards. As I mentioned before, today I'm joined on the screen by 2 lovely ladies who are going to introduce themselves in the moment, but we're going to both talk about their experiences as educators and as parents around what it takes to be really productive in our communication with our schools and vice versa. We're going to have some tips on how we can do that. And then we're also going to have time at the end for a question and answer. So if there is a specific question that you are hoping to get answered today, please make sure you put it in the chat. We will get to as many of, put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A, because we're at the end of the session, we're going to save time to get to those questions. This webinar is really designed for you. So please make sure that if there's something that you really want to speak about, you put it in the Q&A and we'll do our very best to get to it. As Jackie is mentioning in the chat, you guys feel free to use the chat. So if you haven't already, go ahead, introduce yourself. What are you excited about this school year? It's the launch of a new school year. It's a time to kind of restart and be fresh. And so we'd love to hear what you're excited about for this school year, but also what maybe you're excited about to learn on this webinar. So with that said, I would like to turn it over to the other ladies on the screen. And I want to know, first, introduce yourselves. We want to know who you are and what brought you here today. But I'd also love to hear from your perspective, why is it important that educators and parents collaborate effectively?
Thank you so much, Stacy. My name is Linda Trotter. I'm a 1st grade teacher and grade team lead with Success Academy. I have taught for about 16 years now, kindergarten through 4th grade. I truly love each and every grade level. Each level has its own unique characteristic. Like, for example, I'm currently teaching 1st grade, as I said, and in 1st grade, really teaching the children how to read and think about what they're reading through certain letters, sounds, and chunks that then are developed into bigger words and phrases. That being said, I have to say that I really believe, from my perspective, that parents and educators working together is essential in order for the children to really develop into independent individuals that can one day have a positive impact on society. Because by working with your educator, the teacher, along with the family, we can ensure that the child is enjoying the classroom experience and really getting the most out of it as possible. But through talking with the families, the parents, we're able to see if what we're doing as educators is effective. So that's why I truly believe and know that communicating with families is key to the child's ultimate success. And I've seen that through my experience teaching kindergarten all the way through 4th grade.
Hi. Hi, I'm Nana Alawiye. I'm a business operations manager here at Success Academy. I'm also a parent to 3 kids, biological kids, and also a co-parent to almost 400 children, which are mostly your kids. I've been working as an educator for almost 14 years. and believe strongly that parent partnership with the school builds the whole child. Like, we always have to be on the same page, communicate, know what's going on, share ideas, share best practices, so we know that we are all working together for the total child, and we're like communicating effectively and working towards the growth of the child.
Well, thank you. And thank you both. I know you're coming to us live from your schools. I know there's a lot of kids and teachers and other folks, parents outside your doors who probably want to talk to you and need your time. So again, thank you so much for being here and for sharing your experience with us. I want to start with kind of painting that mental model that we could all use by sharing an experience that you've had maybe in your past of a time where parent and teacher collaboration went well. And if you can tell us a little bit about like what made it successful and what was the outcome of that parent and teacher collaboration that we so want. I think it's so important that we have that model of, if this is done well, what do we get?
More than happy to jump in. Something that really stands out to me is when we're doing our project-based learning unit and we had the opportunity for the children to present and share to their families. Their children were in groups and each group was sharing, presenting. Then a family member comes over and listens to their child speak. And they're just so impressed by the level of detail the child's going into when they're talking about the Iroquois and Ave, and they come over to me and they whisper, "Miss Trotter, what'd you do?" I said, "Well, I love to talk to you about what I did," quite frankly. So then I talked to the parent about how I really listened to the child discuss like what he wanted to know about the Iroquois Lenape. Then I went and I found other resources for him that were related to his interests. And by the parent coming to me and just asking me a simple question of like, "What did you do?" I was able to explain to her, and then she thought to herself, she told me, "Well, I'm just going to take him to the library and learn more about the Iroquois Lenape," because he actually wanted to know about the three sisters, the corn, beans, and squash, more detail about that. So there was a science connection, which was so fun. So she took him to the library and they did a little more research. And it turns out that not only did he decide to find out more information about the corn, beans, and squash, he also decided to find out more information about how the environment helps the different plant organisms be able to thrive and flourish. So that conversation was so impactful because the scholar was able to not only learn more about what we're learning in the classroom, but also learn about things outside of the classroom that were connected to his interests. And just by his mother just saying, "What did you do?" And I took it from there. Like, I didn't mind her coming in the moment, just asking me. I was like, "I got you." And I just listened to him speaking about his interests and went from there. That was just so amazing because he had to come back and share during snack time and also in the morning meeting, which is just so fun.
For me, an interesting conversation I had with my daughter's advisor. Middle school, we have advisors. So an interesting conversation is in class, my oldest daughter wasn't very outspoken, and she had to build her communication skills. And partnering with a teacher to see how both of us can work together to get her where she needs to be. We brainstormed to see what would best help support her to get her to be more communicative, more vocal in class. And the teacher suggested, how about she joins the debate team? And I spoke to Hassana, who is my eldest daughter, and I was like, "Hassana, what do you think about debate?" She was like, "I really like debate. I really want to be a lawyer, but I'm scared to talk in public." I'm like, your teacher mentioned to me you would be a great debater. How about we work together to get you there? She was like, "Okay, I'm willing to try." She did join the debate team. I started communicating with the debate teacher. She joined 2 years ago. By the end of last school year, she's very outspoken in class. She actually signed up to be the president of a debate team. Like, that communication with the teacher was able to build that confidence in her, knowing that she had two people rooting for her. She had cheerleaders. Her advisor was her cheerleader. Her debate teacher was her cheerleader, and she had that support from home. Understanding that these three people, or the school and the home, came together, came up with a plan to support her to get her where she wanted to be. I think it's a good example of school and home working together to get a child the support they need to be.
Yeah, I think what's interesting is both Linda and Nana, what you shared is an example, both examples speak to a true problem, right? As I have a kindergarten, a second grader, and a fourth grader, and all of them, some more than others, but when they come home and I ask them what happened in school today, I get crickets, right? And I'm sure I'm not the only one who gets crickets, right? If you want to put it in the chat, what you get when you ask that question. No, so I get a little bit more from my middle. She tells me a little bit more, but it's like pulling teeth. And when I have something specific to ask about, like the project-based learning, I get way more, right? And it's true, right? If I come home from someone asks me, how was your day? I give a generic answer. But if someone asks, oh, what did you eat for lunch today? I've got a lot to say. And I think the same is true for our kids. So one of the outcomes of great parent-teacher collaboration is that we get a little insight into what happened in school so that we can actually dig deeper on that. And I think the vice versa is true, right? Teachers don't know a lot about what's happening with the students outside of school. They hear some, right? But they certainly don't know nearly as much as the families know. And so by communicating and opening those lines, we really get insight into a more holistic picture of our kids, which really enables us to figure out things like the debate team and how we can get our student to be the next captain, which is so phenomenal. Great. So obviously there isn't one right way to talk and to communicate between teachers and parents. And there's not one right way that a school should do it. There's not one right way for a parent to do it. And there's not even one right way that it'll work for all three of our kids or six of our kids or, you know, both of our kids. So what are some kind of ways that communication can look between families and educators?
I can start. For Harlem West, what I see, I'm in the building, I'm in the Success Academy building. My children are in the school, but I don't go to their classroom to go speak to the teachers. I rely on the emails they send. Like the teachers send a weekly email with the books they are reading, with what they are working on for the month and for the week. So for example, my youngest daughter, who is in 5th grade, just finished reading The Watsons Go to Birmingham. I knew that was the book they started reading. So what I did was, I know I don't have much time to go over stuff at home with them. I get them on Audible, listen to it with them, and then once she's asking questions or she comes home with homework, I can say, what happened with this character in the book? Like, I'm able to use the information the teacher gave in the email to push questions. I know when the tests are coming up, I'm like, hey, Yasmin, I know you have a test in 2 days. Did you go over what you learned in school? What are some of the things you're working on? And I communicate that with the teachers through an email also, like, hey, Yasmin says I push for autonomy. I push for her to self-advocate. I tell her, hey, send your teachers an email. Tell them what you're struggling with, ask for feedback, and let me know. And always CC me on the email. So like building the scholar to be autonomous, but also having my eyes on it to make sure that I know what she's doing and she's doing right, and give her feedback around it also helps with communication.
Similarly, what I would do for my students is on Google Classroom, I'll post a weekly update about every 2 weeks, to be clear. I'll put an update for parents and I'll tell the children, okay, guys, here's an update. Make sure you show your families. That's one way that I communicate with families and sense of overall what's happening in the classroom. But another way that I like to communicate with families personally is I'll send them a little text and say, hey, I would love to chat with you about how your scholar's doing in reading, or can I please chat with you about how your scholar's doing in math? Let me know what time works best. And I tell parents at the beginning of the year to feel free to reach out to me if you ever have any questions, just want to anything. And I always ask them like what's their preferred method of communication, like whether it's Parent Square, sending a text, quick email conversation set up, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, Lindsay, I think that's a really important point, and I see some questions coming in the chat. Different teachers communicate in different ways, right? For some, a weekly email works and you can get the summary and you can respond to that. Sometimes people are just more comfortable over the phone, right? And picking up the phone is the way that we want to communicate. I would advocate that everyone figure out, we got to figure out what works for both us and the teacher. But I wouldn't kind of assume that there's one way that it needs to be communication, that communication needs to be, and rather really think about what would work best for you and your family, what would work best for you in your classroom, and see if that would work with the teacher. I think 9 times out of 10, it's pretty much okay. People are okay with text messages. People are okay with emails. People are okay with phone calls. I think the takeaway is just communicate. So I see some text messages, some chats coming in around, I don't know what's happening in the classroom. Well, if you feel like you don't know what's in the classroom, I guarantee if you ask, the teacher would be more than happy to share with you. And maybe that information does exist somewhere and you're not aware of that where it exists. And so the teacher can probably direct you to where you can find more information. Or maybe it's a good moment for the teacher to realize, oh, wow, I haven't shared that with the families yet. That's a good note. I probably should share it with everyone. So I think my takeaway is don't assume. And just really reach out. And if it's phone call, if it's email, if it's text message, figure out what methods you have and try one of those.
And as an educator, I personally love that when parents just reach out to me and say, hey, how's my child doing?
Right, did everyone hear that? You want to say that again louder for the people in the back?
As an educator, I really love it when families reach out to me and say, hey, how's my child doing?
Right. I think sometimes as parents, we don't want to bother our educators. We don't know that what we are worrying about is really that important. Our educators really do want to hear from you. And so, using those methods that you have, reach out to the teacher if you need information, or to share sometimes information that you have that you think might be relevant for the teacher. Great. So what gets in the way of parent-teacher communication? Obviously, we all have the best of intentions. Parents have the best of intentions. Educators have the best of intentions. I saw something coming in the chat today. Things get in the way of it. What gets in the way, and how can we guard against these things?
Something that gets in the way, I find, with parent communication is that when one party doesn't assume the best of another party, like knowing that as educators, we truly love your children. That's why we spend a lot of our time with them and we look at their work when they go home to school, is assuming the best. Like, if, for example, if you ask us a question, maybe we don't respond directly, maybe because we didn't understand your question. So feel free to ask again and know that we are in it for your child. I've seen that when there's a system of trust amongst the family and the educator, that's when the scholar really develops and flourishes. I've seen it go wrong when a parent stops trusting the teacher and doesn't reach out. Think that has not happened to me, knock on wood, but I have seen it happen. But having that sense of trust and communication, just being open and realizing that we're human, and as teachers, we make mistakes. Maybe we heard you wrong and didn't answer your question right. But know that we really love your child. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in front of them.
I think another thing we parents forget is the teachers are mostly in front of the children teaching. So you may call when they are actually teaching, and we want them to be present with our children, teaching them. We should, if they don't respond to you immediately, send a text message, send an email. At some point they will get to you. If they don't, as Linda said, assume the best. Assume they forgot. Send a follow-up. Hey, Nana, I sent you a text yesterday. I called you yesterday, just reminding you to follow up. We want them to be present with our children, but we also want them to reach out to us. Also, the main office is there. If you don't hear from the teacher, reach out to the main office. Someone from the main office would send a follow-up text or remind the teacher that, hey, don't forget to call Miss Alawiye at the end of the day or by tomorrow, because she reached out to you and she's reached out again. So you should probably call back.
Yes, I really want to emphasize what you just said, Nana, is really, because sometimes we might miss a text. I know I have. missed a text. And I was like, oh my goodness, I need to respond back now, because I would glance at it, I'll click on it, and I would think in my head, okay, make sure I contact this parent. Then it'll come to the next day, I'll be like, wait a minute, I didn't reach out again. So please, like you said, Nana, reach back out to the teacher.
That's great advice, right? Don't assume, right? Communicate. Folks want to hear from you. If you didn't get the answer you need, maybe it's because they didn't understand, or they forgot, and that goes both ways, right? So really making sure that that communication is open and that we're assuming the best in those conversations. I see a lot of questions coming into the chat. We're adding them to our list, so please make sure they keep coming. We're going to talk a little bit more, and we will save time at the end for those questions. So, okay, so any advice, and we spoke a little bit about this, but if there's anything to add on, what's your advice to families or to educators, or both, who are struggling to communicate effectively with one another? And we saw a little bit this chat. Maybe you've tried something that's not working. What kind of advice do you have for those families or for those educators?
For those families and educators, I would say be persistent and don't stop trying. Just think of different ways that you might reach your goal. To think, okay, this is not working. What's another way that I could try? And then feel free to reach out to a colleague or reach out to another family that maybe has worked with a teacher before, in order to see what could be happening. Like, don't be afraid to keep it to yourself, I would say. Ask questions.
I mean, we have the biggest, the real people that we are all working for right there, the child. If you're reaching out to your teacher and you are not getting a response, there are some parents who said they sent me text messages that I did not receive, maybe sending to a wrong number. But you have the child that tell the child, hey, I've been calling Miss Alawiye. Can you tell Miss Alawiye to give me a call back? Don't forget. And they would relay the message to us, and we would try as much as possible not to forget and get back to parents. I think emails have always been like a good way to reach out to via email, CC your main office, so you have two people who have eyes on it, who someone also from the main office can follow up. And if your child has been in the school for some time, you may have a previous teacher's phone number or email. Reach out to them. There's always a link from one person to another. It's just that we just all have to be sophisticated thinkers and find ways to get to where we want to be.
Yeah, I think that's great. And Nana, you brought up an important point. Kids should know that we're talking to their teachers, right? We shouldn't leave them out of this. They should know that we are a partnership. And the more that and I think, Nana, you spoke about this in the beginning, Linda, you've talked about this as well. The more our kids know that we are working together for the same goal of our students being successful, the more the children are going to feel supported. And so really making sure that we're a united front. That doesn't mean that we don't disagree on the back end and we don't have conversations, but it's really important that our kids see that we are communicating to one another and that we are all working towards the same goal of our child's success. So I think that's a really good point that we can't reiterate enough. So we're going to shift a little bit. I wanted to show a quick video that just talks a little bit about our beliefs, about the educator's role in communicating and our parents' role in communicating effectively. And as you watch this quick video, it's about 1 minute, just share in the chat what resonates with you.
At Success Academies, we value parent relationships. We value their partnership. We view parents as a critical part of our school design because we know that in order for scholars to be successful, the parent has to be involved.
Sometimes as educators, we have this feeling of we know it all, we can do it all, we don't need the parents, which is not the case. Parents have the biggest influence on their children, not us.
As a school, our job is to take care of the instructional practice. However, it is also our job to make sure parents know how to help their children at home as well. And so we need parents to be involved in reading and math facts and spelling.
We're not in the house with the child doing the homework. It is the parent. And as an educator and a father myself, I know if I'm heavily involved and I know what's going on in the school and what must be replicated at home, I'm going to make sure it happens.
We ask parents to do a number of concrete things to ensure that they are fully partnered with us for their scholar success. Coming to school on time every day, in full uniform, prepared with their homework and reading log. We expect them to pick up their scholars on time, communicate when things are going well, communicate when things aren't going so well. If a scholar is struggling academically or behaviorally, we expect them to answer our calls when we call. They can also hear from us just to say, hey, I see you doing a great job with their homework and reading log. I just want to say thank you. We invite them in. We show them what it looks like if a teacher is pushing their kid toward mastery. We show them student work, that it is possible. We will even train the parent in how to talk to their child about reading. So we communicate on all things good and bad pretty openly and frequently.
At Success Academy.
Okay. Well, hopefully that video, I see a couple of things coming in the chat. I want to clarify one point, and maybe our panelists can speak to it. We have been maybe focused too much on the parents, and I think largely because we know that the vast majority of the people on this call are parents. But Nana, Linda, can you talk about the educator's role here? Because it certainly is not the parents' role to communicate with educators. In fact, it is the educator's role to communicate with parents. I think what we're trying to communicate here is that parents should feel empowered to speak up and say something if they have a concern. But can you guys speak a little bit more on the educator's role and what parents should expect from educators?
Oh yes, I can definitely speak on that. As an educator myself, I pride myself in my relationships that I build with families, and having that close relationship, they know that when they send their child to me, I'm going to let them know how they're doing, regardless of whether or not they reach out to me or not. They know that they're going to hear from Ms. Trotter in a week or 2 weeks, but they will hear from me at least every 2 weeks or so, because as their teacher, it's my responsibility, I feel, to let them know how their child is doing, even if they're doing just fine. Because I want them to be aware of their progress so they can then take what I'm telling them and then use it to their own benefit to develop their scholar even more and encourage their scholars to be independent in how they think about what I'm teaching them.
I agree with you. Also, for parents, parents don't want to hear when things are going wrong last minute. They want to hear from educators right from the start. So if they're jumping in, they can jump in right from the beginning and make sure that they are supporting the scholar at home for it to get that far. So it's totally on us educators to be consistent with communication with parents, making sure that we're giving them right information and we are following up at the right time to make sure, because we're all working for the scholar. We need to make sure we're all on the same page, and we can't always wait till the last minute to communicate. We need to make sure that it's on time and it's consistent.
Yeah, I think both of those are really important and good points. I think for the parents that are on this call today, if you're not getting the communication that you expect, that's a great piece to raise and ask the parent, ask the teacher for what it is that you're looking for. And so I saw a couple of chats about people who would like to learn more about what the kids are learning in school. That's something where you should expect to know what the students are learning in school, right? Maybe not every single detail of every single day, but generally you should know what unit of study the kids are focused on. And that is information that the school is happy to share with you. So if you're not getting the information that you need, or you're not getting the response, that's a great thing. You should expect that from the schools, from the educators. And I would empower you, I hope you feel empowered to go ahead and ask for that. So we've got a couple of just summarizing tips and tricks that we're going to email out after, but can we put them up for a quick second on the screen? Number one, and I think we're hearing a lot about this today, the expectation should be really clear for both educators and parents. And sometimes a lot of the I think, ways it goes wrong is if those expectations aren't clear. If I'm supposed to use an email and I don't have that email, that's a problem, right? If I'm supposed to have access to a website or to a platform that we're using and I don't have access to that, that's a problem. And so one of the things I would encourage the educators on the call to do is to really be very clear with their families what they expect from them, and vice versa. If a parent has expectations, have a conversation and make sure the parent, the educator knows what it is that you're hoping that you receive. And so I think some of what we are seeing in the chat can be avoided if expectations are clearly set from both ends. Second, concrete and simple systems, right? We don't need 7-page newsletters to communicate about our kids. Now, a 7-page newsletter is fine if that's what works for you. But sometimes, as Linda mentioned, a simple text message to say, hey, when are you free to hop on the phone is a really simple way to get what you need. So if you don't know what systems the school uses, ask them, find out. They probably do have a preferred system. If it works for you, great. If for whatever reason that system doesn't work for you, you don't text message, there's a language barrier, there's some other kind of thing that's getting in the way, say that. And we can figure out probably a different system that could work. And then the last one is know what your role is and what it isn't, right? And so this is one where, you know, as a parent and an educator, Nana, you could probably attest, it's hard, right? There's times where the educator in me has a certain perspective, but with my students, I'm the parent. And so really trying to figure out how do I go into each conversation as a learner, and not assuming that something must be done in a certain way. So when I'm in my educator role, my role is very clearly to communicate clearly with families to make sure we're on the same page. When I'm in my parent role, my role is to learn from the educator what they're trying to do in the classroom and what their vision is. I had an instance recently with my students, with my children, where there was an issue on the bus. And I was speaking to the school teacher and I said, well, my middle daughter must sit with my younger daughter on the bus. And she said, no, actually, your middle daughter should sit with the other second graders because that's what she needs to focus on, is building those relationships with the other second graders. And that was an area where I needed to take off my put on my parent hat and say, you know what, you're right, and follow her direction. So hopefully these are 3 tips, and we'll send a little bit of a follow-up with more details on that. Anything to add there, Linda, Nana, that just anything spark that you want to just share?
Yeah, I will add that as educators, we are also always reflecting on what we are doing and how to communicate best with families and know our role. One thing my senior leader does very well is when we want to push out something to families, he's always like, Nana, as a parent, how would you take this? How would you interpret this? What's your feedback? And we look at it from both the parent's perspective and educator's perspective and make sure that we are all aligned. It will be something both parties, and let's not forget the biggest stakeholder, the child, will all be aligned on to make sure that we are implementing for the sake of the child.
Yes, additionally, I think about how each family is unique. And when you're thinking about your expectations for how you want to relate to that family, you have to think about that family and where they're coming from. So really getting to know the family, and as educators, sharing who I am with the family, professionally, of course, but letting them know that I am there for their child. Please be open with me so I can educate their child to the best of my ability.
Great. Okay, well, we are going to shift to our question and answer. So families, if you, or I shouldn't say families, we have educators and families on this call, I'm well aware. Participants, if you have any questions that you would like to get answered, please go ahead, put it in the chat, put it in the Q&A, we'll add it to our list now. But let's get started. So we just finished the start of the year. I think a lot of educators are reflecting on what they could have done at the beginning of the year, what they maybe should have done at the beginning of the year. So I'd love to hear from you. What do you think should be done? What have you done to really establish this partnership right from the beginning? These are for the educators that are planning for next year already, or they're going to plan for a mid-year restart. What do you think needs to be done to make sure that this gets off to the right start?
I mean, for us, what we did was ask parents we sent out a survey. What do you want for us? What could we do better? And once they said, they were like, we need more. For my school, they were like, we want more school events. We want to be part of the community. We want to meet the teachers. We want to have conversations with them. And we were like, you're right. That's what you want. We are here for you. We started with a beginning of school year barbecue. It was very informal. We had the scholars, we had parents, we had teachers, and we're able to mingle like on a clean slate and form that relationship, form that bond to start the school year right. And we still went down the line. What other things did parents want? They wanted a basketball game, like other events that could build the relationship, which is not specifically just educational, but something to build our personal relationship, to make sure that like we know each other more, know our strength, and have something we could talk about. So we have basketball games coming up between parents and scholars, between scholars and teachers. And then once we've established that now you know me, now we know you, we can then move to like, okay, Miss Alawiye, now that I know you, remember when we saw at the beginning of the school year and we talked about how we could best support Yasmin? Now let's talk about Yasmin. Now we've built that relationship. So like always try to find common grounds with the staff, the teachers. They are also humans. We come back, we come wearing our professional attire, we go running, we go to the grocery store. Some of us have children as you do. And some of us, our kids are friends. I have parents that I know my daughters stay on Zoom or Zoom, they stay on FaceTime all the time, building that relationship with the parents and building that relationship with the scholars. And we have scholars who are like, who tell teachers like, oh, who tell their parents like, Mom, you said this, but actually my teacher said that. Let's go ask my teacher. And like building that informal relationship with the family and making sure we're on the same page because we are all here for the child.
Something that we did at my school this year is that we, at the beginning of the year, called all the families that are in our classroom to introduce ourselves and get to know the families. So something that you can do as an educator, it's kind of like a restart, is to go down your roster and call the families that you have in your classroom. Just say hello. How are things going? Do you have any questions for me? That would be a good way to kind of liven up the relationship, and if you would like to just introduce yourself in a sense.
Absolutely. I think those are great practical tips. Maybe we all can't do a barbecue, but we certainly all can make a phone call and get to know one another. And if we can do a barbecue, great. I love it. Okay, so we're getting a lot of questions about these weekly emails from teachers. People really like these weekly emails. Everyone wants a weekly email. Are there other ways that we can communicate that you've seen used effectively? Does it have to be a weekly email? Actually, Linda, you said you don't do a weekly email, you do an every other week email. But what do you think is the must have in terms of this communication? Right, I think we know all teachers don't send out a weekly email.
To clarify, I put the update on Google Classroom as well. So my update every 2 weeks or so goes on Google Classroom. So families. So
no email at all from Linda.
And another way.
Oh, so Linda, talk to me. What's the purpose of that communication? What do you, when you write that weekly update, what are you trying to share? What's your goal?
My goal is to give parents an insight into what their child's been learning for the past 2 weeks. So then they can ask their child about what's happening in the classroom and ensure that their child is actually retaining information that is being taught. For example, if I'll say, oh, this week we're learning all about how, when you're writing a how-to book, you're ensuring that your first step clearly is showing exactly what you're trying to convey by showing, not telling. Like, so then the parents maybe talk to their scholar and say, oh, how did you show what you're trying to convey instead of tell in your writing, for example?
Nana, have you seen any other, I mean, I can share. So I have one of my kids' teachers sends pictures every couple of weeks. It's not every week. It's, I don't even know if it's with any regularity, but every couple of weeks we get pictures. And I love it because I can go through it with my my son, and I can talk about, oh, I see this picture, you're playing some kind of game. Can you tell me about that? So there's no words in it, but the pictures for me are a great tool that I can see what's happening in the classroom, see that my son looks happy in school, but also kind of engage in conversation a little further with these pictures to help.
For me, what I find most helpful is getting my scholars weekly GPA. Other schools use Genesis. We use PopoPath. Parents are able to log in to see their scholars' growth and see where they are. And with that information, they're able to see where their child needs work and reach out to the teachers, the advisors, to see how we can work together to support our scholars to get where they're supposed to be. Like, so using those, every school has a different platform they use, like relying on those platforms, relying on for us, our action updates and our weekly GPA emails to get an insight of what's going on in school. Our great team leads also send communications out every week to families and to the scholars, because of course we need to build autonomous scholars. We need to make sure that the scholars are self-advocating, are reading the email. And I say that because I'm middle school, our kids are seeing what they need to do to get to where they're supposed to be, with the support from us, the parents, and also us, the educators.
That's great. So Nana, this is a follow-up for you, I think specifically. How do you juggle communication from different, you have 3 kids, so you're communicating minimally with 3 teachers. I imagine a lot more than that. Any tips or strategies that you use to kind of juggle it all?
I look at their work for the year. So for my son who is in high school, I understand what is expected from him, and I know the teacher's name. So when I receive communication and I see Mr. Friedman, I know that's Farid's teacher. When I get communication from Miss Stafford, I know that's Hassana's teacher. And when I get from Mr. Metzger, I know that's Yasmin's teacher. And looking at their like, I attend your scholar success. If your school is hosting it, you should go, beginning of year event. When the principals or the school leaders speak, I get to see what the expectation is of each grade, and I can hold my kids to that. So for example, I know for Yasmin, they were reading Watson's, the next book is going to be The Heart of the Samurai. I start preparing ahead. So when I get any communication regarding The Heart of the Samurai, I know that's for Yasmin. And when I get communication in regards to economics and history, I know that's for Hassana in 8th grade. It could be a lot for parents, but like structuring your time, creating an agenda, knowing what you're working, like what is specific to what child, helps me to separate each child and still focus on developing each child separately.
Yeah, and as a parent of 3, it's a lot. It's a lot to keep on top of. You know, the schools are doing their very best to streamline it as much as possible, but there's just so much that we want to share about your student. And I know from the chat, you want to hear even more, some of us, and some of us are overwhelmed by the communication. And finding that happy medium is maybe a unicorn that we are continuing to search for. But great. So how does communication look different in elementary school versus middle school? And maybe Linda, you can talk a little bit about what it looks like in elementary school in an ideal world. And we know that it's not always ideal, but we're working our very best to get there. And then maybe Nana, you could add on to talk about what is similar or different when a student gets to middle school. And then maybe in high school, the question didn't add that, but I imagine there's some that are interested in that as well.
Definitely. So in elementary school, communication starts at the beginning of the year, as I stated. Teachers will call the families, introduce themselves, and see how they're doing, ask if they have any questions about starting a new grade. Then once a child enters the classroom, the teacher will, for example, I will reach out to the family another 2 weeks or so later to see how things are going, if they have any questions. But before I reach out, the family will receive an email from the main office telling them what's happened so far. In elementary school, for example, it's a general synopsis of like what is going on in each grade. Like, for example, if there's a quiz coming up for first grade, but not for second grade, the parents can find that in an email. Or if there's an event they might want to attend outside of our school walls, that also be provided that week. So at our school, every Friday, the parents receive an action update about what's happening in the school and the next steps they might want to take. As I said before, communication can look like the teacher sending a picture of the scholar saying, hey, this is what they're learning, look at their work. Very informal or formal, depending upon the educator that you're working with.
What is different from elementary school is, and this could be middle school and high school, is parents are shifting from getting communication from a teacher, because elementary school, one teacher can teach all the different subjects. In middle school, teachers are assigned to different subjects. So your child would have a math teacher, a history teacher, an AP teacher, an economics teacher, but your child has an advisor. So your scholar should be, you, the parent, should be hearing mostly from the advisor, who would be supporting both you and your scholar. And another thing that's different from elementary school is communication is mostly with the scholar. Of the child is the one we are working with. They need to be autonomous, because we are building them to be successful in college and in life. In college, we are no lecturer is calling the parent to say, hey, Nana needs to turn in a work. So we are working on it now. So communication is with the child. That a lot of parents always, this is a complaint. I was also complaining. They're like, middle school, the teacher is not calling me. What's going on? And my child was like, but my teacher spoke to me about where I need to be. So we are shifting from you hearing from the teacher a lot, and now it's going to be your child speaking directly with the teacher a lot. And the teacher is looping you in to make sure both of you are on the same page for the success of the child. So we are building autonomous scholars. They need to be self-assured, making sure that they're advocating for themselves, working their way through to get them to where we want them to be in college and in life. So you would be hearing for advisors if you have to or you need to, but communication is mostly with the child, and you have different subject teachers. So if your child is doing very well in science or history or struggling with it, you would hear from the advisor, but you also may hear from the science teacher, because it's a moving part in middle school and high school.
Nana, thank you for sharing that. I think it's a really important point that maybe we need to make sure we set really clear expectations as the educators around why you might not be hearing as much from us in middle school and in high school. And I think Nana said it really well, right? Our role in elementary school when our children are, 5, 6, 7 years old is different than as they get older and older, because we know that when they get to college, no professor is calling us, and we're going to really need to make sure that we've stepped our students to that place so that they can be independent when they need to be. Great. I love this question. How can we do better at putting ourselves in the shoes of either the parent or the educator so that communication runs a little more smoothly?
Linda mentioned this earlier. Assume the best in each other. Assume the best in the teacher, assume the best in the parents. Of course, we are all here for the child. Parents love their children more than anything in the world, and educators love this job where we're here for the passion. We're passionate about educators, scholars, making sure that we are not, and this is something, it's not common, but may happen. Watch what we say in front of our kids, like, oh, Miss Nana is so annoying. And the child would come in, well, I'm not doing my work because my mom said you're annoying. Like we need to watch what we say in front of our children and also assume the best in ourselves. And of course we may have disagreements, it may come up. It shouldn't take much. Miss Nana, I'm sorry, or I'm like, Miss Linda, I was in my feelings yesterday when you called. I was having a bad day. I apologize the way I spoke to you. Can we start afresh? And we all get on a fresh start. We are all here for the scholar. So we always have to assume the best in each other and know that we are all here for one person, which is the child.
And as educators, we have to make sure that we realize that we are talking about someone's child and they love them deeply. So we have to make sure that we're being direct, firm, and warm so that the family feels they can trust us and leave their child with us.
I love it. Those are some really good closing thoughts. Well, I think we've gotten through all of our questions. So I want to take this moment, first of all, Linda, Nana, to thank you guys both so much for being here, sharing your experience with us. I know you've got a lot of students who are probably eager to get back in front of you and have so many things they want to share with you. All of you who joined us today, we hope you found this hour productive. We hope that you took away some thoughts, maybe reaffirmed what you already knew, maybe inspired you to think about something a little bit differently. If you have specific questions or concerns, we really encourage you to go to your classroom teacher, to your advisor, whoever that point person is, and share those thoughts with you and see if you open up a conversation where you could go. If you don't follow us on social media, please go ahead and do so or share us with a friend. We would love to share our events and our resources with more folks. We also have a survey that we just put in the chat. We'd love to hear what you thought about today's event, and so we can continue to offer more events that better suit your needs. We have a science workshop for those educators that are in the room with us. If you're interested in learning about our elementary school science curriculum, go ahead onto our website. We'd love to have you. Our newsletter comes out every month. You should be getting those newsletters. If you're not, go on our website. You can sign up for our newsletter. And just thank you so much for caring so deeply about improving communication with your teachers, with your parents. That's what brought you here today. And it's people like you who are going to make all the difference. So thanks so much.